Welcome to Strawberry Drama. Before embarking on this amazing story, subscribe to the channel, give it a like and share. The ballroom of the Latte Hotel in the heart of Seoul glittered with crystals and golden lights as South Korea's business elite gathered to celebrate the takeover of the traditional JS Corporation. Between glasses of champagne and whispered conversations, Kang Sora stood discreetly in a corner, adjusting the simple black dress he had bought in a department store. Who let that waitress in with the guests? A sharp female voice reached his ears. Park Min-young, marketing director of JS Corporation, smiled mischievously at her companions as she watched Sora. At 28 and with a billion-dollar inheritance carefully kept secret, Sora had learned the art of patience since losing her parents in a car accident 10 years ago. Her grandmother, matriarch of the Khan family, had raised her away from the spotlight, preparing her to eventually take over the family business empire. "Ladies and gentlemen," announced Lee Jun-ho, acting CEO of JS Corporation, raising his glass. "Tonight we celebrate not just a corporate merger, but the beginning of a new era for our company." His eyes roamed the hall, lingering for a moment on Sora without recognizing her. In a corner of the room, Kim Ji-won, a young middle-ranking executive, was watching the scene uneasily. Unlike the others, she had noticed something peculiar about the intruder in the simple dress. Perhaps it was the way Sora carried herself, with a quiet dignity that seemed out of place for someone supposedly inferior. Memories of the past flooded Sora's mind as she watched the celebration. 10 years ago, in this very hotel, her grandmother had called her in for a conversation that would change her life. "Soria," the matriarch had said, "our family built this empire with humility and wisdom. To lead, you must first learn to serve. Observe people when they think no one is looking. That's when their true character is revealed." The plan had been meticulously drawn up. After years of studying abroad and working under pseudonyms in different companies, Sora had returned to Seoul. The acquisition of JS Corporation would be his first big move as leader of the Kongroups, but no one but his trusted lawyer, Choi Woo-shik, knew his true identity. "Miss, I think the staff area is that way." Young Hae-in, the financial director, pointed to a side door with a condescending smile. Sora thanked him politely, holding back a smile. Hae-in was known for embezzling company funds, something his secret reports had already confirmed. Kim Ji-won discreetly approached Sora, offering him a glass of champagne. "Don't let them intimidate you," he whispered, surprising Sora with his unexpected kindness. "Thank you," replied Sora, studying Ji-won with interest. In his investigations into the company, Ji-won had stood out for his competence and integrity, rare qualities in the toxic corporate environment of the JS Corporation. The moment of revelation was approaching. Choi Woo-shik made a discreet signal from across the hall. It was time for the official announcement. Lee Jun-ho returned to the center of the hall, preparing to introduce the company's mysterious new owner. Sora took a deep breath, remembering his grandmother's words. "Power does not lie in humiliating others, but in elevating them. Use your position to build, not to destroy." As he walked towards the makeshift stage, Sora could feel the confused looks turn to shock. Park Min-young dropped his glass of champagne, the sound of breaking crystal echoing through the now silent hall. "Good evening," began Sora, his voice calm but firm. "I'm Kang Sora, granddaughter of Kang Mi-rae and new owner of JS Corporation." The silence in the hall was deafening. "Over the past few weeks, I've had the privilege of observing this company from the inside. I've seen both potential and problems that need to be addressed." His eyes met those of Kim Ji-won, who was smiling discreetly. "From tomorrow we will begin a new phase, one in which merit will be recognized, integrity valued, and mutual respect will be the foundation of our corporate culture." Young Hae-in's face paled when Sora mentioned a full audit that would begin the following week. Park Min-young desperately tried to remember all the nasty words she had said about the intruder throughout the night. But there was no revenge in Sora's heart, only determination. Her grandmother had taught her that true leadership comes not from fear, but from respect. As she concluded her speech, Sora was already planning the changes she would implement. Mentoring programs, anti-harassment policies, transparent performance evaluations. The evening that had begun with mocking laughter ended with a powerful lesson in humility and character. As the guests dispersed, some embarrassed, others anxious about their future in the company, Kim Ji-won approached Sora again. "It will be an honor to work with you," Ji-won said sincerely. Sora smiled, recognizing an ally. "It will be my pleasure. We need people like you to transform this company." The last laugh would not be one of derision or revenge, but of satisfaction at creating something better from the ashes of a toxic culture. And so began Kong Sora's real journey. The morning after the party, Sora arrived early at the JS Corporation headquarters. The mirrored building in Gangnam's financial district reflected the first rays of sunlight as employees began to arrive, still commenting on the previous night's events in nervous whispers. Wearing an impeccable business suit, a far cry from the simple dress of the party, Sora crossed the main lobby. The security guard, who had barely noticed her the day before, now bowed deeply. In the elevator, she met Kim Ji-won, who smiled genuinely. "Good morning, President Kong," greeted Ji-won, formally but warmly. "Ji-won is SI. I'd like you to accompany me to the first meeting of the day," said Sora. "I'll need people I can trust for the changes we're planning." On the 35th floor, Park Min-young was waiting anxiously outside the president's office, his usual arrogant demeanor replaced by a servile posture. "Chairman Khan, I'd like to apologize for my behavior yesterday." Sora raised her hand, gently interrupting her. "Miss Park, your actions speak louder than words. Let's see how you behave from now on." The first meeting of the day brought together the top executives. Young Hae-in seemed to have aged 10 years since the night before, his fingers drumming nervously on the conference table. Lee Jun-ho, the former interim CEO, maintained a neutral expression, but his hands trembled slightly as he held his coffee cup. "Gentlemen," began Sora, "I've spent the last few weeks observing this company not just during the party, but in its day-to-day operations. I found excellent professionals being ignored for not taking part in political games. I discovered institutionalized bullying and, more worryingly, signs of corruption." Their gazes shifted when she mentioned the word corruption. Young Hae-in swallowed. "But I also saw potential," Sora continued, her tone softening. "I saw people like Kim Ji-won, who maintain their integrity even in a hostile environment. I've seen dedicated employees who deserve recognition." At that moment, his phone vibrated with a message from Choi Woo-shik. The audit had already begun on the lower floors. "As of today, we will be implementing significant changes," announced Sora, handing out folders with the new restructuring plan. "First, an anonymous whistleblowing channel will be established. Second, all promotions will be based on merit, with transparent criteria. Third, zero tolerance for moral or sexual harassment." Park Min-young shifted uncomfortably in his chair, remembering how many times he had publicly humiliated subordinates. "Mr. Young," Sora turned to the CFO, "I'd like you to prepare a detailed report on all financial transactions over the last 3 years. My audit team will assist in this process." Young Hae-in's face lost all color. "Chairman Kong, perhaps we could discuss this in private." "There's nothing to discuss in private that can't be said here," replied Sora firmly. "Transparency will be our new standard." After the meeting, Kim Ji-won accompanied Sora on a walk around the company's floors. Employees bowed nervously, some still shocked by the new president's revelation. "Ji-won is SI," said Sora, stopping near a window overlooking Seoul. "Why were you kind to me yesterday when you thought I was just an intruder?" Ji-won hesitated before answering. "My mother was a cleaner when I was a child. I saw how people treated her. I swore I'd never be like that." Sora smiled, remembering her grandmother's words about recognizing people's true character. At the end of the day, while most of the staff had already left, Sora found a young intern crying in the scullery. Her name was Song Hana, and she revealed that Park Min-young constantly humiliated her and made her work overtime without pay. "From today that will change," Sora assured her, offering the girl a handkerchief. "You will report directly to Kim Ji-won." In her new office, Sora watched the city lights as she reflected on the day's events. A photo of her parents and grandmother rested on the desk, reminding her of her purpose. Choi Woo-shik entered with the first audit reports. "Miss Kong, we found significant irregularities in Mr. Young's offshore accounts." "Prepare the necessary documentation," replied Sora. "He'll have a chance to explain, but I won't allow this to continue." Before leaving, Sora passed by the marketing department, where Park Min-young was still working. visibly trying to show dedication. "Miss Park," Sora called out, "tomorrow we have a meeting to discuss the new employee treatment policy. I'd like you to prepare a presentation on bullying in the corporate environment." The request, which sounded like an ironic punishment, was actually a chance for redemption. Sora believed that people could change as long as they were confronted with their own actions. At home, finally relaxing in his apartment in Abgujon, Sora received a message from his grandmother. "I saw the news. Your parents would be proud." While planning the next steps to transform JS Corporation, Sora knew that the road would be challenging. Changing a toxic corporate culture wouldn't happen overnight, but she was prepared for the long journey. The last laugh would not be about revenge or humiliation, but about transformation and growth. And at that moment, watching the lights of Seoul from her apartment window, Sora felt she was on the right path to honoring her family's legacy and making a difference in the lives of hundreds of people. A week after the revelation at the party, Sora faced his first major challenge as president of JS Corporation. The preliminary results of the audit revealed a more extensive corruption scheme than she had imagined, involving not only Young Hae-in, but a network of high-ranking executives. In his office, Sora was reviewing documents with Kim Ji-won when Choi Woo-shik rushed in. "Chairman Khan, Young Hae-in is trying to leave the country. Our investigators have located him at Incheon International Airport. Activate the protocol we've prepared," ordered Sora, remaining calm. Within minutes, the authorities were notified, and Young Hae-in was prevented from boarding his flight to the Maldives. Meanwhile, on the 28th floor, Park Min-young was conducting a workshop on bullying, her tense expression revealing her discomfort at tackling a subject she herself had practiced for years. Young trainee Song Ha now watched from the back row, noticing the change in her former supervisor's behavior. "Real change begins with recognition," said Park Min-young, her voice trembling slightly. "I, myself, have made mistakes that I'm not proud of." Sora, who was watching discreetly from the doorway, noticed tears in the eyes of some employees. The cultural transformation she was seeking was beginning to show its first signs. An unexpected phone call interrupted her observation. It was the CEO of Chen Industries, an important business partner of JS Corporation. "Miss Khan, I heard about the changes you're implementing. Some of our previous arrangements need to be discussed." "Mr. Chan, any agreement that can't be discussed openly has no place in my company," replied Sora firmly, ending the call. Kim Ji-won, who was accompanying Sora to a meeting with the development department, noticed the president discreetly checking her phone. A message from her grandmother flashed on the screen. "Remember, dear, sometimes you have to lose to win." The afternoon brought a surprise when Lee Jun-ho, the former interim CEO, asked for a private meeting. "Chairman Khan, I've come to confess my participation in Young Hae-in's schemes. I'm willing to cooperate fully with the investigation." Sora studied the man in front of him, realizing the weight of guilt on his shoulders. "Mr. Lee, your honesty will be considered. Redemption begins with the truth." In the company cafeteria, employees from different departments were beginning to mingle, breaking down the old rigid hierarchies that segregated the tables. Song Ha-na now ate lunch with senior colleagues, sharing ideas for improving internal processes. At the end of the day, Sora visited Choi Woo-shik's law office in Gangnam. "The documents found on Young Hae-in's computer are sufficient for criminal prosecution," he explained, spreading files out on his desk. "I don't just want to punish Woo-shik. I want to recover the embezzled funds and invest them in development programs for our employees." Returning home, Sora took a detour to Uedo Park, where he used to walk with his parents as a child. The cherry trees were starting to blossom, reminding her of nature's constant cycle of renewal. Her phone rang again. It was Kim Ji-won with urgent news. "President, it's leaked to the press about Young Hae-in's escape attempt. The reporters are surrounding the company headquarters." Sora took a deep breath, remembering the crisis management lessons she had learned. "Prepare a press conference for early tomorrow morning. Let's face it transparently." In his apartment, as he was getting ready for bed, Sora received an unexpected visitor. Park Min-young was standing in his doorway, holding a briefcase. "President Khan, I've spent the night putting together a complete cultural change program for the company. I know I can't erase my mistakes, but I can help build something better." Sora invited her in, surprised by her initiative. As they went over the program, she noticed the glint of determination in Min Young's eyes, so different from the arrogance she had displayed before. The evening progressed as Sora finalized preparations for the next day. On TV, news reports speculated about the changes at JS Corporation and Young Hae-in's fate. Her grandmother sent another message. "You're creating waves, dear. The strongest waves start as small ripples." In her diary, Sora wrote, "Transformation is not just about changing systems, but about changing hearts. Every person carries the potential for change, even those who have hurt us." The next day promised to be crucial. The press conference, the revelations about corruption, the uncertain future of several executives. But Sora felt prepared. Her journey from silent observer to transformative leader was just beginning, and every challenge was an opportunity to prove that the last laugh belonged to those who chose the path of integrity. The press conference was scheduled for 9 o'clock in the morning, but Sora arrived at JS Corporation at 6, finding Kim Ji-won already in his office preparing the necessary documents. The sun had barely risen in Seoul, and the first TV vans were already positioned in front of the building. "The documents incriminating Young Hae-in are indisputable," said Ji-won, organizing a folder of carefully selected evidence. "But there's something you need to see." She slid a file across the table. "We found suspicious transfers to an account in the Cayman Islands linked to Lee Jun-ho, even after his confession." Sora frowned, studying the documents. Lee Jun-ho's confession was beginning to look more like an attempt at damage control than a genuine act of repentance. His phone vibrated with a message from Choi Woo-shik. "Young Hae-in is willing to negotiate." In the marketing department, Park Min-young was conducting an emergency meeting with his team. The change in her demeanor was remarkable. Where once there was arrogance, now there was a leader focused on rebuilding bridges that she herself had burned. "President Khan," called out Song Ha-na, now an intern in the Human Resources Department, "I found something in the old files." She presented documents dating back 5 years, showing a pattern of suspicious dismissals of employees who had tried to report wrongdoing. At 8:30, Sora met with her core team in the conference room. The reflection of the rising sun on the surrounding buildings created a play of light and shadows that seemed to symbolize the moment of revelation that was approaching. "From today, we will not only be transparent about our past," announced Sora, "but we will set a new standard for corporate governance in South Korea." Choi Woo-shik arrived with news from the police station where Young Hae-in was being held. "He's willing to hand over documents about schemes at other companies in exchange for leniency." "Justice is non-negotiable," replied Sora, "but we can consider his cooperation in sentencing." At 9 o'clock sharp, Sora entered the auditorium packed with journalists. Cameras flashed as she walked to the podium, maintaining the composure her grandmother had taught her from an early age. Kim Ji-won and Park Min-young sat in the front row, offering silent support. "Good morning," began Sora. "A week ago, I took over as president of JS Corporation with the promise of transformation. Today, I reveal the extent of the challenges we face and our vision for the future." While Sora presented the evidence of corruption and the restructuring plan, behind the scenes, a team led by Song Ha-na was implementing the new anonymous reporting channel. By the end of the morning, they had already received 12 reports of irregularities. In the boardroom, veteran executives watched the live broadcast, their pale faces revealing concern about their own possible connections to the schemes exposed. After the press conference, Sora received an unexpected call. It was the CEO of Chin Industries again, but his tone had changed. "Chairman Khan, I'd like to discuss a truly transparent partnership between our companies." Later that afternoon, Kim Ji-won found Sora in his office, reviewing CVs for new leadership positions. "Social media is calling you the Princess Punisher of the Chaebols," he commented, showing her his tablet. Sora smiled, remembering how her grandmother always said that great titles often came with great responsibilities. "Our real test will be to maintain this moment of transformation." Park Min-young knocked on the door, bringing the first results of his cultural change initiative. 93% of employees have already signed up for the anti-harassment training program, she reported proudly. As the sun set over Seoul, Sora decided to do something unusual. She gathered all the employees in the main lobby for a moment of frank conversation. "Each of you is part of this transformation," she said. I'm not just here as your president, but as someone who believes in the potential for change. Song Ha-na, watching from the stairs, noticed tears in the eyes of several colleagues. The invisible barrier between leadership and employees was beginning to dissolve. That evening in her apartment, Sora received a surprise visit from her grandmother. The Khan matriarch brought with her an old diary from Sora's father. He wrote about his dream of creating a company that would be a model of integrity, she said, her eyes shining with pride. You're making that dream come true. As they shared a cup of tea, they discussed the next steps. JS Corporation's transformation had only just begun, but the foundations for a new era were being laid. In his own diary before going to sleep, Sora wrote, "Real change doesn't come from grand gestures, but from consistent small actions. Each person who chooses to do the right thing, even when no one is looking, contributes to this transformation." The next day would bring new challenges, but Sora was prepared. The last laugh would not be about revenge or personal triumph, but about the collective victory of a company that had chosen to reinvent itself. In the upscale district of Gangnam, a discreet cafe served as the meeting point for a meeting that would change the course of the JS Corporation. Sora watched through the window as he waited for Kim Min-jae, a former employee who was fired 5 years ago after trying to expose irregularities in the company. The documents found by Song Ha-na had revealed his story. "Chairman Khan," greeted Min-jae, looking nervous as he sat down. He was wearing a simple suit, unlike the successful executive he had been years ago. "I confess I was surprised by your invitation. Mr. Kim, we've discovered the truth about your dismissal." Sora was direct. "I'd like to hear your side of the story." Meanwhile, at JS Corporation, Park Min-young was holding a tense meeting with his team. An anonymous tip-off had revealed that senior members of the marketing department maintained a messaging group where they shared derogatory comments about junior employees. As of today, any form of bullying, even in private conversations, will result in severe disciplinary measures, Min-young declared, his voice carrying the weight of someone who knew this toxic behavior well. Kim Ji-won, analyzing financial reports in his office, discovered a series of suspicious payments to a phantom consultancy. The company was registered in the name of Lee Jun-ho's wife, confirming that his previous confession had only been partial. Min-jae began reporting his story to Sora. In 2018, he had uncovered an overbilling scheme in technology contracts. When he took the evidence to Lee Jun-ho, he was threatened and subsequently fired on false charges of harassment. "No company wanted to hire me after that," Min-jae revealed, his hands shaking as he held his coffee cup. "Lee Jun-ho made sure my reputation was destroyed." Sora received an urgent message from Choi Woo-shik. Young Hae-in had agreed to testify against Lee Jun-ho in exchange for a reduced sentence. The case was expanding like a house of cards falling apart. Back at the company, Song Ha-na organized an unprecedented event, an open forum where employees at all levels could share experiences and suggestions directly with the leadership. The initiative, part of the Cultural Transformation Program, attracted hundreds of applications. President Khan called out Ji-won when he saw Sora returning from the cafe. "Lee Jun-ho's wife is in the lobby. She says she has important information." In the private meeting room, Lee Mi-suk, Jun-ho's wife, revealed an even more complex story. Her husband had been blackmailed by Young Hae-in for years, forced to participate in the schemes under threat of exposure of other family secrets. "My husband is not innocent," Mi-suk admitted, "but he is also a victim of this toxic system." Meanwhile, on the forum organized by Ha-na, employees began to share their stories. A young designer revealed how her ideas were constantly stolen by her superiors. A veteran manager admitted to ignoring harassment cases for fear of retaliation. Park Min-young, sitting in the back row, listened to each account with a mixture of shame and determination. Their own past actions were a reflection of the environment they were now fighting to change. Sora received a call from her grandmother during a break. "Remember, dear, sometimes healing requires first fully exposing the wound." In the afternoon, Sora invited Min-jae to a formal meeting at JS Corporation. Senior employees recognized him, whispering among themselves as he crossed the lobby with Sora. "Mr. Kim, I'd like to offer you not only your job back, but the leadership of our new Compliance and Business Ethics Division," proposed Sora. No one better than someone who has faced the consequences of doing the right thing to make sure this doesn't happen again. The tears in Min-jae's eyes said more than words could express. At the end of the day, Sora gathered his closest circle. Ji-won, Min-young, Hana and now Min-jae. The results of the forum and Mi-suk's revelations painted a complex picture of how a toxic culture was perpetuated through fear and power. It's not enough to punish those responsible, Sora reflected. We need to create an environment where courage and integrity are rewarded, not punished. A notification on his phone said that the story of JS Corporation's transformation had become a trending topic on social media. Other companies were beginning to question their own practices. Before leaving, Sora stopped by the marketing department, where Min-young was still working on a new code of conduct. The hardest change is the one we make in ourselves, said Sora, surprising Min-young with an encouraging smile. In the president's office, looking out over the illuminated city, Sora updated his diary. True strength lies not in keeping secrets, but in having the courage to face them. Every story revealed today is a brick in the construction of something better. The next day promised more revelations and challenges, but for the first time since taking office, Sora felt that transformation wasn't just possible, it was inevitable. The last laugh would be at the justice, integrity, and courage of those who dared to make a difference. News of the transformation at JS Corporation reverberated through Seoul's business district like waves on a pond. On a particularly hectic morning, Sora found his desk full of requests from other companies wanting to know about his culture change program. Chairman Khan, Kim Ji-won hurried into the office. The prosecutor's office wants your cooperation in a wider investigation. It seems that Young Hae-in's schemes connect to other corporations. Meanwhile, in the Human Resources Department, Min-jae was organizing his new compliance team. His first task was to review years of filed complaints, looking for patterns that might reveal systemic problems that had not yet been identified. I found something interesting, commented Son Hana, now Min-jae's direct assistant. Several reports mentioned secret meetings at the Paradise Hotel in Busan. They all involve Lee Jun-ho. Park Min-yeon, who was passing through the corridor, stopped at the mention of the hotel. His face paled slightly before he continued on his way. Ji-won, a keen observer, noticed his reaction. Over lunch at a traditional restaurant near the company, Sora met with her grandmother in Choi Woo-shik. The Khan matriarch looked worried. The Chens are putting pressure on the board, she revealed. They fear that our investigations will expose their own questionable practices. Let them press, replied Sora, her eyes reflecting the determination inherited from her father. We won't back down. Back at the company, an unusual scene was unfolding in the lobby. Lee Jun-ho's wife Mi-suk was publicly confronting Park Min-yeon. You knew everything. You were at the meetings in Busan. Security guards quickly intervened, but the damage had been done. Staff were whispering, and Min-young was visibly shaking. Sora, returning from lunch, witnessed the end of the scene. Miss Park, in my office. Now, ordered Sora, her voice calm but firm. In the sanctuary of the presidential office, Min-young collapsed. Between tears, she revealed her unwitting participation in Lee Jun-ho's schemes. He had information about my past, about my family. I was forced to attend meetings to document everything. And you kept records? Asked Sora, offering a handkerchief. Min-young nodded slowly. I kept everything. It was my insurance, my protection. Kim Ji-won, who was watching the confession, realized that they were facing a crucial turning point. Min-young's documents could be the key to dismantling the entire corruption network. That afternoon, as the sun began to set over Seoul, Min-jae discovered something disturbing in the old files. Chairman Khan, we found records of suspicious deaths. Officials who may have been silenced. The gravity of the situation weighed on everyone. What had begun as a mission of cultural transformation was now turning out to be a much darker web. Son Hana, working late, received an unexpected visit from Mi-suk. There's something you need to know about my husband, about President Kang's parents' accident. Sora's heart froze when she heard Hana's report. Was it possible that her parents' death hadn't been an accident? In her apartment that night, Sora stared out at the illuminated city, memories of her parents floating through her mind. Her phone rang. It was Kim Ji-won. Min-young's documents are more serious than we imagined, reported G1. There's evidence of market manipulation, bribery of government officials, and, she hesitated, possible involvement in your parents' accident. Sora felt the weight of the world on her shoulders. Her mission to transform the company was now intertwined with the search for the truth about her parents' deaths. The next morning, JS Corporation was buzzing with new energy. Min Young, now cooperating fully, worked with Min Jae to map out the entire network of corruption. G1 coordinated with the prosecutor's office, while Hana organized the crucial documents. "Remember," said Sora in an emergency meeting with his trusted team, "our priority remains the transformation of this company. Justice does not mean revenge." Choi Woo-shik arrived with news of the police investigation. Lee Jun-ho is willing to confess, but he wants guarantees of protection. He fears for his life. As the afternoon progressed, Sora received a cryptic message from an unknown number. "Not everything about your parents is what it seems. Paradise Hotel, Busan, 10 years ago." The mystery deepened, but Sora kept his focus. The transformation of JS Corporation had to continue, regardless of the personal revelations that emerged. "Our strength lies in our transparency," Sora declared in a statement to employees. "Every truth revealed makes us stronger, more united." That night, as the moon illuminated Seoul, Sora made a silent promise to his parents. The last laugh would not just be about transforming a company, but about revealing long-buried truths and honoring the legacy of integrity they had tried to build. The revelation about the possible connection between Lee Jun-ho and Sora's parents' accident triggered a series of events that no one could have predicted. On a gray morning in Busan, Sora found himself in front of the Paradise Hotel, the same place mentioned in Park Min-young's documents. The Art Deco building, with its imposing facade, held secrets from a decade ago. "Chairman Kong, we found the hotel's former manager," Kim Ji-won said over the phone. "He's willing to talk, but only in person." In the temporary office set up in Busan, Min Jae and Song Hana worked tirelessly, connecting the dots between the financial records and the secret meetings held at the hotel. A former Paradise employee approached them with disturbing information. "That night, 10 years ago, I saw Mr. Lee Jun-ho arguing heatedly with his parents in the restaurant on the 15th floor," the woman revealed, her hands shaking as she held a cup of tea. "Hours later, I was ordered to delete the security recordings." In Seoul, Park Min-young was facing her own moral dilemma. After handing over the incriminating documents, he began to receive anonymous threats. "You should have kept your mouth shut," said the last message on her cell phone. "I won't back down now," Min-young told Choi Woo-shik, who was organizing his protection. "I've lived in fear long enough." The investigation took on a new dimension when Mi-suk shared old emails from her husband. The messages revealed a complex scheme involving the hostile takeover of Sora's parents' company, planned long before the fatal accident. "They refused to sell," Mi-suk explained, her words laden with guilt. Jun-ho said he would find a way to solve the problem. Sora, processing each new piece of information in his hotel room in Busan, received an unexpected visit from his grandmother. The Khan matriarch was carrying an old leather briefcase. "Your father suspected something was wrong," she revealed, handing over documents yellowed by time. "He started his own investigation weeks before the accident." Among the papers, Sora found notes about suspicious meetings at the Paradise Hotel and irregular bank transfers. His father had discovered part of the scheme, but didn't live to expose it. In Seoul, Kim Ji-won was coordinating a delicate operation with the prosecutor's office. "We need to act simultaneously on all fronts," he explained to investigators. "If we alert one suspect, the others will destroy evidence." The transformation of JS Corporation continued in parallel with the investigations. Song Hana implemented new transparency programs, while Min Jae completely restructured the compliance department. "It's amazing how much safer people feel to speak up now," Hana observed during a video conference with Sora. "We've received more than 50 genuine complaints this week." Park Min-young, despite the threats, has immersed herself in her work of cultural reshaping. Her own journey of redemption inspired other employees to face up to their past mistakes. "Sometimes we need to lose everything to find our true strength," Min-young reflected during a mentoring session with young executives. The investigation at the Paradise Hotel revealed a secret meeting room in the basement, accessible only by a service elevator. Old records showed that Lee Jun-ho used it frequently in the months leading up to the Kong accident. Chairman Khan called Ji-won urgently. "We found security footage that survived the cleanup. You need to see it." The recordings, although partially damaged, showed Lee Jun-ho meeting a man whose image was distorted. The date, exactly 3 days before the accident. Choi Woo-shik, analyzing the images with forensic experts, made a surprising discovery. The man in the video, he currently works for the Chun. The Chun connection added a new layer of complexity to the case. The pressure they exerted on the council now made more sense. They too had secrets to hide. In his diary, Sora wrote, "Every truth revealed brings with it 10 new questions. But I cannot allow the quest for justice to compromise the transformation we fought so hard for." The night in Busan brought heavy rain, and Sora found himself in front of the Paradise Hotel again. This time, accompanied by Kim Ji-won and the former manager, who finally decided to reveal everything he knew. "That night," he began, his voice trembling, "I heard Lee Jun-ho on the phone. He said, 'It's done. The Kangs will no longer be a problem.'" The revelation struck Sora like a thunderbolt, but she kept her composure. The last laugh would not be about personal revenge, but about justice and transformation. Her parents' legacy would be honored not only through the exposure of the truth, but through the complete overhaul of the system that allowed such tragedies. "Tomorrow," Sora told his team, "we begin the final phase, not just for the memory of my parents, but for everyone who has suffered under this corrupt system." The rain continued to fall on Busan, washing away the secrets of the past and preparing the ground for a new dawn at JS Corporation. The morning began with the disturbing discovery at JS Corporation's temporary office in Busan. Song Ha-na, reviewing restored security footage from the Paradise Hotel, noticed a crucial detail that everyone had missed. A reflection in the glass clearly showed the face of the mysterious man who had met with Lee Jun-ho. "President Khan," Ha-na called out urgently to Sora. "It's Kim Young-min, the current vice president of the Chun Group. But 10 years ago, he was working as an insurance consultant." Sora felt his heart race. The insurance consultant who had sued his parents' policy days before the fatal accident now held a position of power in one of Korea's largest corporations. In Seoul, Park Min-young was facing his own nightmare. When she arrived at her apartment, she found signs of a break-in. On her desk, a single photo, her talking to Lee Jun-ho at the Paradise Hotel years ago. On the back, a threatening message: "Secrets must remain buried. I can't stay here anymore." Min-young called to Kim Ji-won, her voice trembling. "They know where I live." Ji-won quickly organized Min-young's transfer to a safe house, where Choi Woo-shik had already installed a security system. On the way, Min-young revealed more details about the meetings at the hotel. "Young Men wasn't just a consultant," she explained. "He was coordinating an insurance fraud scheme. Accidents that weren't accidents." At the Paradise Hotel, Sora and Min-jae discovered a safe hidden behind a false panel in the underground meeting room. The old manager, pressured by the new evidence, finally gave in to the combination. Inside the safe, as well as financial documents, was a USB stick. "I made backups of the recordings just in case," confessed the manager. "I never fully trusted Lee Jun-ho." Meanwhile, the transformation of JS Corporation continued. Ha-na coordinated business ethics workshops, now with a special focus on recognizing and reporting suspicious activities. The culture of fear was beginning to give way to one of transparency. "It's fascinating to see how people change when they feel safe," Ha-na observed during a video call with Sora. Today, 3 senior managers voluntarily came to reveal questionable practices from years ago. In his hideout, Park Min-young worked tirelessly, organizing years of documents and memories into a coherent timeline. Each piece of the puzzle revealed more about the complex web of corruption. "Your parents' accident wasn't the first," Min-young explained to Sora. "I found similar patterns in at least 5 other cases, all involving executives who refused to cooperate with Lee Jun-ho and young men." Choi Woo-shik arrived with news from the prosecutor's office. "We got a warrant to investigate the Chun Group's offshore accounts. Young men tried to block it, but we have enough evidence." Sora's grandmother, following developments closely, shared a crucial memory. "Your father mentioned young men once. She said he had made a strange proposal about corporate insurance. Your father turned it down." In Busan, forensic analysis of the USB stick revealed secretly recorded conversations. In one of them, young men coolly discussed the technical details needed to make an accident look convincing. "The brakes need to fail at just the right moment," his voice said on the recording. "We can't risk survivors who can talk." Sora felt nauseous as she listened to the details of the plan that took her parents' lives. But his determination only grew. The transformation of JS Corporation was no longer just a corporate mission. It was a form of justice. "We need to be strategic," advised Ji-won. "Young men and the Chun group have powerful connections. One wrong move and we could lose everything." Min-jae, analyzing the documents in the safe, discovered something intriguing. The insurance fraud was just the tip of the iceberg. They used the deaths to manipulate the stock market. Each accident generated millions in profits. At his hotel in Busan, Sora received an unexpected visit from Mi-seok. "Junho is ready to confess everything," she announced. "But he has one condition: full protection for our family." Night fell over Busan, and Sora once again found herself gazing out over the city from the balcony of her room. Her phone rang. It was Kim Young-min. "Impressive investigative work, Chairman Khan." His voice was soft, almost friendly. "But some secrets come at a very high price. How much is peace worth to you?" Sora didn't take the bait. "True peace only comes with justice, Mr. Kim. And justice is coming." In the safe house, Min Young worked through the night, connecting evidence. One discovery made her turn pale. Young men had recently bought significant shares in JS Corporation through shell companies. "He's attempting a hostile takeover," Min Young warned. "If he gets control, all our transformation work will be destroyed." The morning brought new revelations. Hana discovered that employees of the Paradise Hotel, who could testify about the suspicious activities, had received substantial bribes to leave the country. "The network is bigger than we imagined," observed Min-jae. "But every corrupt person we expose brings us closer to the truth." Sora assembled his core team by video conference. It was time to move all the pieces simultaneously. The last laugh wouldn't just be about exposing the truth about his parents, but about dismantling an entire corrupt system that had cost many innocent lives. "Tomorrow," declared Sora, "we begin the final phase. Not for revenge, but for justice, for transformation, for all those who have lost their lives to corporate greed." The night in Busan ended with a silent promise. The truth, like sunlight, would find its way through the densest shadows of corporate corruption. The tension in the meeting room of the Latte Hotel in Seoul was palpable when Kim Young-min entered, accompanied by his lawyers. The meeting, requested by the vice president of the Chun Group himself, surprised everyone. Sora watched his every move with calculated attention, while Kim Ji-won discreetly recorded the conversation. "Chairman Khan, your investigation is causing unrest in certain circles," began Young Man, his smile not reaching his eyes. "Perhaps we can reach a mutually beneficial agreement." At that same moment in Busan, Min-jae and Son Hana were making a crucial discovery in the Paradise Hotel's digitized archives. "The bank transfers matched the dates of the accidents exactly," whispered Hana, his hands shaking as he showed the documents. Park Min-young, still in the safe house, received an unexpected visit from Mi-seok. "I found this among Junho's old things," she said, handing over a small notebook. He recorded everything obsessively. The diary revealed a disturbing pattern. Young Men wasn't just a facilitator of the accidents. He was the main architect of the scheme. Lee Junho, although an accomplice, had been manipulated through blackmail and threats. "Mr. Kim," Sora kept his voice firm as he faced Young Men, "what exactly are you proposing?" "Simplicity, Chairman Khan. The Chun Group will buy your shares for generous. You can retire young, live anywhere in the world." Elsewhere in Seoul, Choi Woo-shik was receiving alarming information from the prosecutor's office. Young Men has started transferring large sums to foreign accounts. He's preparing to flee. Kim Ji-won, observing the meeting, noticed something peculiar about Young Men's behavior. His eyes constantly turned to a particular painting on the wall, a landscape of Mount Buchan. After he left, she examined the place and found a listening device. "He recorded the whole conversation," Ji-won warned Sora, "but that could play in our favor." In JS Corporation's marketing department, the cultural transformation was continuing. Even in the midst of the investigation, Hana implemented new transparency protocols, while previously silenced employees began to share their stories. "It's like a heavy curtain has been lifted," commented a veteran manager during a feedback session. "For the first time in years, I can breathe freely at work." Mi Suk, analyzing Junho's diary with Min Yun, found references to other executives involved in the scheme. They called it Project Phoenix. They eliminated companies through accidents and then bought them back for cheap. Sora, reflecting on Young Min's proposal in her office, received an urgent call from her grandmother. "Darling, I've just had a visit from the Chan. They're threatening to expose ancient family secrets if you don't back down." "Grandma, what secrets would those be?" "Nothing we haven't already overcome. But be careful. They're like snakes waiting to strike." In the safe house, Min Young worked tirelessly to connect all the evidence. His laptop showed a complex web of relationships and transactions stretching back over a decade. "The pattern is clear," she explained to Ji-won via video call. Each accident was preceded by a hostile takeover attempt. When the company refused, Young Min stepped in. Choi Woo-shik, coordinating with international authorities, managed to trace Young Min's financial movements. He has a pattern. He always uses banks in Singapore as intermediaries. At the Paradise Hotel, Hana and Min Jae discovered a number of additional safes, each containing evidence of different accidents. "He kept trophies," Min Jae observed with disgust. Sora, preparing for his next move, assembled his core team by video conference. "Young Min thinks he can manipulate us with threats and money. He doesn't understand that this fight is bigger than us." "Chairman Khan," interrupted Ji-won, "I've just received information about a secret meeting of the Chun Group board. They are planning an internal coup against Young Men." The news changed the dynamics of the game. With Young Men losing internal support, his position was more vulnerable than ever. However, this also made him more dangerous. "A cornered animal is more likely to attack," warned Sora's grandmother during a private dinner. "Your father found that out the hard way." As night fell over Seoul, Sora finalized his strategy. The transformation of JS Corporation had shown that real change was possible. Now it was time to ensure that justice was done. "Tomorrow," she announced to her team, "we'll present all the evidence to the prosecutor's office. But first, I have one last meeting with Young Men." The plan was risky but necessary. With each piece of the puzzle in place, the last laugh was approaching, not as revenge, but as a moment of truth and transformation that would change the Korean corporate landscape forever. A brown envelope arrived at Sora's office the next morning. Inside were old photographs of his parents at the Paradise Hotel, taken days before the accident. A note accompanied the images. "Some memories should remain buried." Wim Kim Ji-won, analyzing the photos with Sora, noticed a disturbing detail. "President Kong, look at this." She pointed to the reflection in a window, showing someone secretly photographing Sora's parents. At the same moment in Busan, Song Hana was making a crucial discovery in the hotel records. "Min Jae, I found something." She showed documents detailing regular payments to a private photographer. He followed all the targets before the accident. Park Min-young, still in the safe house, received an unexpected visit from Mi Suk. Young Men wasn't just the architect of the accidents, revealed Mi Suk, her hands shaking as she handed over more documents. He collected trophies from each victim, photos, personal belongings. Choi Woo-shik was coordinating with the prosecutor's office when he received an alert. Young Men's offshore accounts have begun to be systematically emptied. He is preparing to flee. At JS Corporation, the transformation continued. Previously silenced employees were organizing support groups, sharing experiences and strengthening the new culture of transparency. Hana oversaw these initiatives while continuing his investigation. "President Khan," called Ji-won urgently, "Young Men has requested another meeting, but this time at the Paradise Hotel." Sora contemplated the proposal, remembering her grandmother's words about trapped animals. "Accept," she decided. "But with our conditions." Min Jae, investigating the photographer's past, discovered disturbing connections. He worked for a private investigation agency before disappearing 5 years ago. The timing coincides with one of the most suspicious accidents. In the safe house, Min Young was working tirelessly, connecting evidence. His laptop was displaying a complex web of relationships when a notification popped up. Someone was trying to hack into his system. G1SSI, she called immediately. They're trying to erase our digital evidence. JS Corporation's IT team sprang into action, tracing the hacking attempt to a server in Singapore, the same country where Young Men kept his secret accounts. Sora assembled his core team to plan the meeting with Young Men. The Paradise Hotel, scene of so many tragedies, would be the venue for the final showdown. He chose the location with the traumas in mind, observed G1. He's trying to destabilize her emotionally. Then we'll use that to our advantage, replied Sora, her voice firm. Mi-suk brought more revelations. Junho's diary mentioned a specific safe in the hotel, hidden behind a panel in the old meeting room. Young Men kept his most precious trophies there. Ha-na and Min-jae, investigating the safe, found a shocking discovery. Chairman Khan, there's a folder with your name on it. Ha-na informed them, her voice trembling. He was planning something against you too. The folder contained recent surveillance of Sora, including photos of her at her parents' funeral 10 years ago. Young Men had been watching the Khan family for much longer than they realized. Choi Woo-shik coordinated with international authorities to block Young Men's accounts. He's trapped financially, but that makes him more dangerous. The day before the meeting, Sora visited her parents' grave. Tomorrow, she promised, we'll have justice. The day of the confrontation arrived with a fine rain over Busan. The Paradise Hotel, imposing as ever, seemed to hold all the secrets of the last few decades within its walls. Young Men was waiting in the same room where, years before, he had planned so many tragedies. His confident smile faltered slightly when he saw Sora enter alone. Miss Khan, or should I say tireless hunter? Her tone was slightly debauched. Did you bring my generous offer? Actually, Mr. Kim, I brought some photographs that might interest you. Sora slid images of Young Men himself on the day of his parents' accident onto the table. The color left the executive's face. The pictures showed him talking to the mechanic who had sabotaged the Kang's car. How? He began, but Sora interrupted him. The photographer you hired? He kept copies of everything. An insurance policy, he said. We found his archive after his mysterious death 5 years ago. As they talked, teams from the prosecutor's office silently surrounded the hotel. Kim Ji-won coordinated the operation from the surveillance van parked nearby. You don't understand. Young Men tried to regain control. This is bigger than the two of us. There are powerful people who are already cooperating with the authorities, Sora added. The Chun group is eager to distance itself from you. The realization of the complete siege struck Young Men like a thunderbolt. His mask of confidence crumbled, revealing the desperate man behind the cold executioner. At that moment, the last laugh was not one of revenge or triumph, but of justice finally achieved. The transformation of JS Corporation would only be the beginning of a larger change in the Korean corporate landscape. Kim Young Men's arrest resonated like an earthquake throughout the Korean corporate world. In the early hours of the morning, Sora watched from the window of his office at JS Corporation as press vehicles flocked to the entrance of the building. His phone kept ringing with calls from other CEOs, all eager to distance themselves from Young Men. Chairman Khan, Kim Ji-won rushed in. The Chun Group board has called an emergency meeting. They're trying to make a collaboration agreement with the prosecutor's office. Park Min-yeon, now working in her new position as compliance officer, brought worrying reports. We found evidence that Young Men had connections in at least 5 other large corporations. This could trigger a series of investigations. At the Paradise Hotel in Busan, Song Ha-na and Min-jae continued to rummage through the secret safes. Among Young Men's macabre trophies, they found something disturbing. A detailed plan for an accident that never happened, with Sora as the target. He intended to use the same method he used on his parents, Ha-na explained over the phone, her voice trembling. He was just waiting for the right moment. Mi-suk, Lee Junho's wife, decided to cooperate fully with the investigations. In testimony to the prosecutor's office, she revealed a complex network of executives who benefited from the accidents orchestrated by Young Men. It was like a secret club, she described. Each member indicated potential targets, companies that refused to be bought. Young Men was just the most visible enforcer. Choi Woo-shik coordinated with international authorities to trace the embezzled assets. We discovered accounts in the name of shell companies not only in Singapore, but also in the Cayman Islands and Switzerland. The scheme is much bigger than we imagined. At JS Corporation, the cultural transformation continued in parallel with the investigations. Hana implemented a psychological support program for employees traumatized by the former management. Stories of harassment and bullying emerged daily. "It's like draining a swamp," observed Min Young during a meeting. "Every day we discovered more toxicity that needed to be cleaned up." Sora received an unexpected visit from her grandmother, bringing an old box. "I found this among your father's things," said the matriarch. Inside was a diary detailing her suspicions about Young Men and the Chan group. "Your father was very close to exposing everything," the lady revealed. "That's why Young Men acted so quickly." Kim Ji-won, analyzing the financial data with his team, discovered a disturbing pattern. Each accident was preceded by a series of specific transactions. Using artificial intelligence, we identified at least 15 other suspicious deaths over the last 15 years. In the legal department, Choi Woo-shik was preparing lawsuits against everyone involved. "It's not just about punishment," he explained to Sora. "It's about setting precedents that prevent this from happening again." Mi-suk brought more shocking revelations. Young Men held regular meetings with a select group of executives at a remote Buddhist temple in the mountains. "They called themselves the Architects of Fate," she reported. "They decided who would live or die based on potential profits." Son Ha-na, investigating the temple, found meticulous records of these meetings. They documented everything in code, but once you understand the pattern, it's frighteningly clear. The pressure began to show results. Executives from various companies came to the prosecutor's office voluntarily, offering information in exchange for plea bargains. "It's like a house of cards collapsing," observed Ji-won. "Each confession leads to more revelations." Sora, in the midst of the whirlwind of events, kept his focus on the transformation of JS Corporation. The Young Men case was just a symptom of a larger problem in Korean corporate culture. "We can't just punish the guilty," she declared in a meeting with her team. "We need to create structures that prevent this from happening again." Min Jae, working with international consultants, developed a new corporate governance model: full transparency, cross-checking of important decisions, and real protection for whistleblowers. The media began calling the case the Great Corporate Cleanup. JS Corporation, under Sora's leadership, was becoming a model of business transformation and ethics. Park Min-yeon, reflecting on his own journey of redemption, implemented a mentoring program for young executives. "We need to teach the next generation that success and integrity are not mutually exclusive." At the end of that intense day, Sora found a quiet moment in her office. Looking at the photo of her parents, she thought about how her quest for justice had turned into something much bigger. "The last laugh," she wrote in her diary, "is not about revenge or personal triumph. It's about transformation, about creating something better from the ashes of a corrupted system." Night fell over Seoul, but the lights of the JS Corporation remained on. The transformation continued, and with it, the hope for a more ethical and humane corporate future. The sun had barely risen when Sora received a cryptic message on his cell phone. Geographical coordinates followed by the phrase, "where it all began." The location pointed to a remote area on the outskirts of Busan, next to an old abandoned factory. Chairman Khan, Kim Ji-won, hurried into the office. "We've identified the source of the message. It came from a phone registered to Park Jun-ho, the mechanic who worked on your parents' car." In the safe house, Park Min-young was analyzing a disturbing discovery. "The mechanic didn't die in the boat accident as everyone thought," she explained via video conference. "There are records of monthly payments being made to an account in the Philippines up until 3 months ago." Son Ha-na and Min Jae, investigating the old factory, found evidence that the site had been used as an operations center for Young Men's group. "Chairman, we found partially burned documents," Ha-na reported. "They planned accidents here away from prying eyes." Choi Woo-shik, coordinating with international authorities, confirmed that Park Jun-ho was alive. "He was seen in Manila last week. It seems he's trying to make contact." Mi-suk brought more revelations during a meeting with the prosecutor's office. Young men kept a special file on each accident. His parents, Chairman Kong, was marked Project Phoenix Prime. It was considered their model case. At JS Corporation, the transformation continued despite the ongoing investigations. Employees reported significant changes in the working environment. One young executive shared in a meeting, "For the first time in 5 years, I'm not afraid to express my ideas." Sora decided to personally investigate the coordinates received. "It's an obvious trap," warned G1, "but it could also be our chance to close this case for good." With a discreet security team and support from the prosecutor's office, Sora arrived at the old factory at dusk. The site, surrounded by mountains, seemed to freeze time in its peeling walls. "Miss Khan," a familiar voice echoed through the empty space. Park Jun-ho emerged from the shadows, his face marked by the weight of years and guilt. "I have something you need to see." The mechanic revealed a USB stick hidden in a rusty toolbox. Young men didn't just rely on digital documents. He kept physical backups of everything, including the direct orders he gave for each accident. Meanwhile, in Seoul, Min Young was making a crucial discovery in the files recovered from the Paradise Hotel. The meetings of the architects of fate were not just to plan accidents. They created artificial economic crises to profit from the misfortune of others. Ha-na, analyzing the new documents with his team, found connections with seemingly unrelated cases. Every major corporate scandal of the last 15 years has a connection to Young Men's group. Mi-suk, now actively collaborating with the investigations, revealed that her husband Lee Jun-ho had started secretly documenting the group's activities years before. He knew that one day it would all come to light. It was his life insurance. At the old factory, Jun-ho continued his confession. It wasn't just about money. Young men believed he was purifying the corporate world, weeding out those he considered weak or too ethical. Choi Woo-shik, receiving real-time updates, coordinated with international authorities to protect key witnesses who were beginning to emerge in different countries. "Their empire is crumbling," observed G1, monitoring the news of arrests and confessions that were multiplying. Back at JS Corporation, Sora was implementing structural changes that would not only transform her company, but serve as a model for a new era of corporate governance. "Real change," she said at a meeting with executives from other companies, "doesn't come from the top down. It comes from a deep cultural transformation, where each person understands their role in building something better." Park Jun-ho, now under the protection of the public prosecutor's office, continued to reveal details of the scheme. Each new piece of information connected more dots, forming a complete picture of the extent of the corruption. "Your father," he told Sora with tears in his eyes, "was the only one who tried to help me when young men started threatening me. I'll never forgive myself for not being strong enough to resist." Night fell over the old factory as Sora absorbed the latest revelations. The last laugh would not be one of triumph over the fallen, but of hope for a future where tragedies like his parents would no longer find fertile ground. "There is still a lot of work to be done," she wrote in her diary that night. "But every truth revealed is a step towards the transformation we dream of." Park Jun-ho's revelation triggered a series of events that no one could have predicted. As the investigation team searched the old factory in Busan, Sora received a disturbing call from Kim Ji-won. "Chairman Kong, Young Men has been found dead in his cell." The silence that followed was deafening. The news of the death of the architect of so many tragedies should have brought relief, but it only added another layer of mystery to the case. At JS Corporation, Park Min-young coordinated a special task force to protect crucial documents. "Someone has tried to hack into our servers 3 times in the last 2 hours, she reported, her fingers flying over the keyboard as she strengthened the digital defenses. Song Ha-na, investigating Young Men's latest communications, discovered something intriguing. President, he made one final call before he died, to a number in Hong Kong. Choi Woo-shik immediately began tracing the call. The number belongs to a shell company called Phoenix Global Investments. "Phoenix," muttered Sora, remembering the code used for his parents' murder. It wasn't just a project, it was an entire organization. Mi-suk arrived at Sora's office with new documents found in a secret compartment in Lee Jun-ho's house. My husband kept a special file on Phoenix. Its decades of operations, not just in Korea. Min-jae, analyzing the documents with his team, identified a disturbing pattern. Every major economic crisis in Asia over the last 20 years has a connection to them. It wasn't just corporate murder. It was market manipulation on a global scale. At the Paradise Hotel, now practically a research center, Kim Ji-won found a series of old photographs. One of them showed young men at a very young age, next to Sora's father and other executives. They were friends, realized Ji-won, until his father found out the truth about Phoenix. Park Jun-ho, still under protection, continued to reveal details. Young Men wasn't the real leader. He was just the chief enforcer in Korea. The real leadership is in Hong Kong. Sora organized an emergency video conference with authorities from several countries. The Phoenix had left a trail of destruction across Asia, but had always remained in the shadows. We need to act simultaneously, explained Sora. If we alert one arm of the organization, the others will disappear. Hana, monitoring international communications, picked up suspicious movements. They're transferring assets massively. It seems that Young Men's death has activated some kind of emergency protocol. Min Young, working with financial crime experts, identified the pattern. They're using cryptocurrencies to move the money. It's practically impossible to trace in real time. In the old factory, the forensics team discovered an underground bunker. Chairman Khan, Min-jae called over the phone, we found files dating back to the 70s. Phoenix has been around a lot longer than we thought. Mi-suk brought another shocking revelation. Jun-ho mentioned an annual meeting in Hong Kong. The real leaders meet in a Buddhist temple in the mountains. Choi Woo-shik immediately began coordinating with Hong Kong authorities. The temple exists, but has officially been abandoned for decades. Sora, analyzing all the information in his office, realized that they were facing something much bigger than personal revenge or corporate justice. It was a chance to dismantle an organization that had manipulated economies and destroyed lives for generations. The last laugh, she told her assembled team, won't be about a single company or person. It will be about exposing decades of manipulation and corruption. Park Min-yeon, retrieving deleted data from Young Men's servers, found a list of codes. These are future dates, she realized with horror. They already have the next targets planned. The night wore on as the team worked tirelessly. In Hong Kong, Seoul, Tokyo, and other Asian capitals, authorities were preparing for a coordinated operation that could change the global economic landscape. Tomorrow, Sora wrote in his diary, we begin the final chapter of this story. It's no longer about revenge or personal justice. It's about correcting decades of manipulation and giving a voice to those who have been silenced. The sun was rising over Seoul, marking the beginning of a day that promised to change everything. The transformation of JS Corporation had only just begun. The real battle was about to begin. The coordinated operation against Phoenix Global Investments began at dawn in multiple Asian cities. Sora, in the makeshift command center at JS Corporation, watched the screen showing simultaneous operations in Hong Kong, Tokyo, Shanghai, and Singapore. President Khan, the teams are in position, reported Kim Ji-won, coordinating with international authorities. The Buddhist temple in Hong Kong is surrounded. Park Min-yeon, monitoring financial transactions in real time, detected frantic movements. They're trying to transfer billions to ghost accounts, but we've already blocked the main escape routes. In the bunker of the old factory in Busan, Song Hana and Min-jae discovered something disturbing. Chairman, Hana called urgently, we've found a list. These are the names of people who helped cover up Phoenix's activities over the last 50 years, including judges and high-ranking politicians. Choi Woo-shik, working with Interpol, confirmed that the arrests were beginning to cascade. The leaders were gathered at the temple, just as we predicted. Decades of economic manipulation coming to an end. Mi-suk arrived with crucial information from Lee Jun-ho's files. They have a last resort, a computer program designed to cause a collapse in the Asian stock markets if the organization is exposed. It's a bluff, Min-young analyzed, his fingers flying over the keyboard. But we need to be sure. Park Jun-ho, watching events from the safe house, provided valuable insights into the inner workings of Phoenix. They've always operated on the principle of controlled chaos. They create crises to profit from reconstruction. At JS Corporation's headquarters, employees watch the news unfold in real time. The transformation that had begun with one company was now reverberating across the Asian continent. Chairman Khan called out G1. "We found something on the Hong Kong servers. It's a recording of the last conversation between young men and his father." The recording revealed that Sora's father had discovered not only Phoenix's plans, but also an even more disturbing truth. The organization had been founded by former executives who had profited from Korea's post-war reconstruction. They turned tragedy into an industry. Sora realized, the pieces finally falling into place. Every crisis, every death, was part of a cycle that they controlled. Anna, still in the bunker, found old photographs. These are meetings dating back to the 50s. They planned to manipulate the reconstruction of Asia from the start. Min-jae, analyzing historical financial documents, identified the pattern. Every major Asian economic boom was preceded by a crisis manufactured by Phoenix. Arrests continued in different countries. In Hong Kong, authorities found the real leaders of the organization, respected elders of the financial world who had built fortunes on the suffering of millions. "The stock market crash program has been neutralized," announced Min Yan, exhausted but triumphant. "They can no longer use fear as a weapon." Sora received a call from her grandmother. "The Chens have just confessed everything," the matriarch informed her. The Phoenix had controlled them through blackmail for generations. At the end of that historic day, Sora assembled his core team. The transformation that had begun with JS Corporation had triggered a systemic change throughout corporate Asia. "It's not just about justice for our personal losses," she said, looking at every face in the room. "It's about creating a future where organizations like Phoenix can no longer thrive in the shadows." Park Min-yeon, who had gone from antagonist to crucial ally, shared her perspective. "True transformation happens when ordinary people decide to do the right thing, even when it's difficult." In the old factory, now a memorial to the Phoenix victims, Sora found one last document among the archives. It was a letter from her father, written the night before his death. "Dear daughter," the letter began, "if you are reading this, it means that I was unable to complete my mission, but I know that you will carry on the fight for a fairer and more humane corporate world." The last laugh was not one of revenge or triumph, but of hope. JS Corporation, under Sora's leadership, became a model of ethical governance and cultural transformation. Other companies began to follow his example, creating a new era of transparency and integrity in Asian business. Months later, at a special ceremony, Sora inaugurated the Kong Business Ethics Center, dedicated to promoting responsible business practices and protecting whistleblowers. "The true strength of a company lies not in its profits," she declared in her inauguration speech, "but in its ability to create positive value for society." Kim Ji-won, Park Min-yeon, Son Ha-na, Min-jae, and all those who had taken part in the journey were present, each now leading initiatives to prevent organizations like Phoenix from emerging again. The transformation begun by a young heiress in a simple dress at a corporate party had become a movement for change that crossed borders and generations. "The last laugh," Sora wrote in her diary that night, "belongs to those who choose to build rather than destroy, who opt for integrity rather than power at any cost. And this laughter will continue to echo through future generations."